What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video I want to talk about why The Last of Us Part 2 doesn't have an official release date yet. And this really goes back to a lot of things that we've talked about on the channel through a lot of different games, a lot of different leaks. And we talked about it basically or mostly with Harry Potter Magic Awaken, or that Magic Awaken RPG game, and also the Warner Bros. Montreal Batman Arkham game. And when it comes to leaks, how it's a juggle for developers and publishers of whether to kind of comment on them or whether to just leave them be and just kind of in that limbo phase. And we see a studio like, say, a publisher like Ubisoft, and how basically every single one of their games gets leaked majorly, where we know plots, we know release dates, we know so much about the game, sometimes as early as a year before the game comes out. Sometimes we know the next Assassin's Creed game before even the current one is out yet. And what normally happens is relatively soon after, Ubisoft pretty much announces it. I mean, Watch Dogs Legion was heavily leaked and talked about and rumored leading into E3, and so Ubisoft kind of just said, Watch Dogs Legion, it's real, it's happening, see you guys next week, 2 weeks for E3. And they do that quite often. They've done that with Assassin's Creed quite often, basically yearly. They did that for Honor, they've done it for The Division, they do it for so many of their games, and in a way, I kind of like that they do it, because we get the leak, we get a lot of information, and then Ubisoft basically recognizes that, like, okay, well, it's all out there, people know it, and so we're going to now talk about it, and then they show it, and there's a lot of hype, and most of them turn out to be rather good. You have that. Now you have a game like Harry Potter Magic Awaken, or even the Batman Arkham game from Warner Bros., and in terms of the Magic Awaken game, so much of that game leaked, and just so many details about that game came out, and here we are almost a full year after, and there's been nothing. And so you kind of have that leak just out there. You have Warner Bros. Taking down YouTube videos that are talking about it or showed the leaked footage. So clearly it's real, clearly it's happening, but they refuse to talk about it, and they refuse to announce it, and I feel like it's just a bad look on you. And how does this all connect? Well, you know, the title is The Last of Us, and we're 2 minutes in, I haven't said anything about it. The Last of Us is kind of the same thing. This has been one of the games that's like, when are we getting the release date? And we've been asking that question probably for like a year. I'd say going back to last year's E3, when The Last of Us Part 2 was there, they showed the gameplay. It looked phenomenal. You guys are seeing it right now. It looked phenomenal. It really does look amazing. You know, all the new mechanics that they've added to this game. It looks so good. And more than that, it looked more done. And in terms of my opinion even, it looked way more done than I thought it was going to be. And I think a lot of people thought it was going to be. I really had no expectations leading into E3 of last year as to when The Last of Us would be ready to come out. I always actually assumed this would be a next-gen game, or it would be right at the tail end of the PS4, so like June of 2019 or June of 2020. That's always what I assumed, but I really didn't care about how far along the game looked. You know, I was just looking forward to seeing it, and then we saw it, and I was like, wow, this game looks a lot closer to being done than I thought. Then we got Death Stranding's release date, obviously for this November, and people, and again, including me, I think for the longest time, even though Death Stranding was being worked on at the same time, maybe even a little bit earlier than The Last of Us Part 2, I think people had always assumed that The Last of Us was just always closer to being done than Death Stranding. It kind of went Last of Us, Death Stranding, Ghost of Tsushima, where Ghost of Tsushima noticeably last year looked like it had a lot more work ahead, where it looked like, you know, they had to do quite a bit more. It's not even close to being ready. But I think people also thought that The Last of Us, just kind of by it existing and by being made by Naughty Dog, that it was the closest to being done and that we just didn't have to worry about it. Well, now Death Stranding's out, or it's going to be out. You know, it's going to be out in a couple months, but they've announced it, and it looks very much ready. Meanwhile, The Last of Us also looks very ready, and where is it? Well, the rumors and the leaks, if you guys have seen it, we've even talked about it on videos in the past, you know, the rumors is that this game was supposed to come out in the fall. It actually was supposed to come out this upcoming fall, and it got pushed to February, and this was a report dating back a couple months ago. And here's the thing, I mean, at this point, and we have Ashley Johnson during an interview being asked when the game is coming out, and she says, I think it's supposed to be, or I think it's going to be, and she starts to say Feb, and she says, actually, that's literally what she says. She mouths, and you can even hear her say the beginning of the word February. So it's the worst, it's one of the worst, like, besides next year's Call of Duty and the Battlefields and the Assassin's Creed and stuff, I feel like The Last of Us Part 2's release date is one of the worst kept secrets in gaming. But the question still remains is, like, why hasn't been announced yet. I think it's just to an overall also problem that Sony really needed a state of play this summer, and as of yet, in terms of when I'm recording this at least, there has not even been a announcement that there's going to be one. I think they didn't miss out. They didn't miss out at all by not going to E3. That didn't affect them. However, they have a lot of things that they can still talk about. They have games that are still coming out that we would like to see more of, and I'm sure they have a couple of smaller announcements that would make a really nice, tight 10 to 15 minute state of play. And I don't know why they haven't chosen to do it. I said that I believe they need one by the end of this summer, by the end of August. And again, in terms of when I'm recording this, middle of July, we have nothing. We have no evidence to show us that that is going to happen. But I think this would be the easiest way to announce The Last of Us. And it also just comes out to the point of how long are they going to wait? Like, what are they waiting for? I know there's TGS, I know there's Gamescom, there's all these different things. There's Comic-Cons, there's literally conventions every month pretty much. So they could do it. Could be a Game Informer cover for a month. They could just announce it. Sony is totally big enough. PlayStation's totally big enough. You could just see one random Monday in September. They say The Last of Us Part 2 is coming out February, whatever, and here's a brand new trailer. That could 100% happen. They basically did that with Death Stranding the week before E3. I thought that would be part of a state of play, or I thought that could look good in a state of play, but that's fine what they did. It obviously can carry itself. Hideo Kojima can carry itself. Norman Reedus and the game Death Stranding can carry themselves. PlayStation can carry it. So there's a lot of different ways that they can announce it. I'm not worried about how they'll announce it, but it's another one of those examples of just these rumors and leaks in a way. It's not super, but it has basically been leaked to this point that this game's a February game. And while I think it looks much nicer in June, I think June just has a really good ring to it, considering The Last of Us, the first game came out in June, right before the PS4 came out that following fall, and then it would just kind of, I don't know, it just feels like some sort of symbolism or some sort of harmony if this game also came out in June. If it's coming out in February, I don't want to push it to June, but I just think that June still has a better ring to it. But at this point, I've pretty much given up on my June thought that this could happen. I've always predicted it would come out in June. I guess I have to just give that up because February seems to be when it is, and that's awesome. When this game does get announced, that's going to be phenomenal. February is a fantastic spot for it. It puts it ahead of those March games. March is going to be a very, very filled month with the Final Fantasy remake, with Watch Dogs, with a lot of games. Animal Crossing. There's a lot of games in March. We don't know when Dying Light 2 comes out. We don't know. The Skull and Bones come out in the March through June kind of zone. So there's a lot of games that can come out, and having The Last of Us basically beat all those to the punch. Not in terms of maybe quality. Some of those games could be very, very good, but having that game come out first, The Last of Us come out and kind of be that first huge game. This year we had Kingdom Hearts right at the end of January. We didn't have to wait long. Kingdom Hearts came out just 1 month into the year, and we tend to get that. 2 years ago it was Monster Hunter, and then February was Kingdom Come, if you guys remember that game. That game I personally believe is an awful game, but I know a lot of people like it. So we normally have those kind of 1 to 2 big juggernauts within the first 1 to 2 months of the year, and The Last of Us Part 2 seems to be that game for next year. And that also kind of opens up Ghost of Tsushima to potentially be in June. We've talked about that as well. Ghost of Tsushima has to slide itself in there before the PS5, but it can't come out too close to The Last of Us. You don't want that game out. I think in March or April, May or June sounds like a really good spot for Ghost of Tsushima, as long as they can do it. Again, that looked like it had a lot of work ahead of it, and I don't want to rush them, so we would just have to see if they can actually, if Sucker Punch can nail that, slot of when it should, I think, release. But again, it's kind of just this thing where there's so many rumors, there's so many leaks, and Sony just kind of lets it be. And I don't like it for Harry Potter. I don't like it for these Batman games, and I don't necessarily like it for The Last of Us. It's yeah, it doesn't exactly matter because it's a game that already exists. It's just a release date. It's not like a leak of a brand new game, and then you're just gonna you just kind of leave that out there for people to kind of marinate on, and you're not gonna say anything about it. That is, I do agree that is way different. I think that looks worse when you are Warner Bros. With Harry Potter and Batman. I feel like that does look worse on you because you're not denying it, but you're not going to announce it. You're going to wait like a year and a half before you actually announce it. So these rumors have just been around forever, and then I feel like it loses some of the luster. It's not as big of a deal for a game that already exists, and it's just a release date. But at the same time, again, you have Ashley Johnson talking about it. You have just leaks in general from insiders in gaming saying, yeah, it's coming out in February. And you have all this stuff, and it's like they're still not going to say it. They're going to, and I get it. You don't want to be pressured into just coming out with it. Maybe they have some huge plan that they're going to announce it. Maybe they have like this time in their head that they feel like is the perfect time to announce this game. Maybe that's true, and maybe that's what they're waiting for. But guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think? Firstly, do you think The Last of Us Part 2 is releasing in February? I believe it is, but you let me know. And also, when do you think they're going to actually announce the release date? Make sure you guys also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit that bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And thank you as always for watching. We will be continuing to cover The Last of Us Part 2, and when that game actually does get a release date, we'll of course be talking about it then, as well as leading up to the game coming out itself. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.